Mr. PEPE REILLY, thank you very much for coming on to theboxingbar.com, man, and welcome.
Thank you.
First question, man. What part of LA were you from? Where were you born and raised?
I was raised in Glendale, California. I went to high school in Glendale. I started boxing, though, in all the gyms in East LA and the areas out in those areas, like on the east side and stuff. Any boxing gym that had sparring, we would go to. But I grew up in Glendale.
And why the sport of boxing of all things, man? I mean, how did you get into the sport? How did that fall into your life?
We did everything. When I was a little kid, and my dad's a sports fanatic, so we did the football, we did the baseball, Little League and everything. But once I started boxing, everything just fell into place. I was 8 years old. I started winning fights right away, and we just fell in love with the sport.
Were you pretty much a mild-mannered person going into the sport?
Yeah, I never considered myself being tough. I always try to be someone that thinks, be a thinking boxer. Try to use intelligence. I wasn't born with a big, tough body and the tough head, so I was forced to try to outsmart my opponents. Growing up, my dad, he insisted that we be the smarter guys in the ring compared to your opponent.
Growing up there at home, did you grow up in a loving family? Did you guys have a dysfunctional family? What was it like growing up?
My family was tough. Once we started boxing and I showed promise, my dad, when we were young, he said, "You're going to go to the Olympics." I was like 10 years old. I'm like, okay. And it was tough. When I met Oscar De La Hoya in the gym in the weekend, we used to go do the fights, and we used to match people up. You show up and you match yourself up against another person, right? And I ran into Oscar in a tournament when we were 10 years old. I ran into Shane Mosley at 11 years old. So once my dad saw that kind of competition come together, he said, "I'm going to take you to the Olympics." Olympics. I'm like, okay. And after that, it was tough. It wasn't being a kid anymore. It was being a prodigy, and someone that was headed in that direction, and everything around your whole life revolved around that from that point on. So the loving and all that stuff didn't really play a part as much as the getting ready for the big time and making things happen and getting things done. It was a little tougher than your average childhood.
And you just brought up those two legendary names, Shane Mosley and Oscar De La Hoya. I know a lot of people are going to want to probably know, what type of kids they were, how good of a fighters they were that young.
When I first started boxing, because I'm a year older than Oscar, from the ages of 8 to 10, I didn't lose. I beat everybody. There was no one that can touch me. I remember being a little kid, being so confident, and being cocky, like, yeah, man, no one could beat me. And then we took a summer off to play football, I remember. And when we came back, it was like a whole new scene, and there was new people and stuff. And the first time I saw Oscar, I kind of knew. I looked at him like, well, that guy's going to be tough. Good-looking guy. He walked on his toes, and you could tell he walked with his shoulders up, and he knew what he was doing. So the first time I saw Oscar, they were actually going to match him up against my brother. My brother wasn't as good as I was. I was like, oh, so we held off on that. And the week after that, I got matched up against Oscar De La Hoya, and we fought each other at the Hyatt at the City of Commerce. It was funny because he was the first guy that ever gave me to see stars. He knew the left hook, and I saw stars for the first time as a little kid. And
wow, even since then?
Yeah, ever since we were 11 years old. And since he beat me the first time, then we fought again like a week later, and I beat him. We kind of beat each other on the way, and we kind of grew up together in the sport. Shane Mosley also, he was just part of the group. My father and his father were best friends for a long time, and we all kind of grew up together into going into the Olympic year for that.
You're talking about Jack Mosley, right?
Jack Mosley, correct. Joe De La Hoya, Oscar's father. Like, we all knew each other, all each other's families. We would go to each other's houses and stuff.
What was boxing like then for you, if you can remember, because that's pretty young? But what was it like for you? You think you were just naturally gifted, where you were good going into the sport, or was it something that you had to really work hard at to get good? No,
boxing came easy for me. I was tall and skinny, and like I said, I played all sports. I was naturally good at sports. My brother and sister, they were really smart in school, and not that I wasn't, because I like school. That was important and stuff, but when it comes to sports, I was a man. So whatever I did related to sports, I was always good. And so when I started boxing, it became really easy for me. But once you start getting competition like, De La Hoya and Shane Mosley and Rafael Arelas and Lee Espinosa's son, he was really good back then. And we all started fighting each other, and it was like, whoa, okay, this is getting serious. So, yeah, but your question, yeah, it came easy for me in the beginning.
There's a lot of people that would think, hey, what are kids doing boxing at that age, at 8, 9, 10 years old? And would that affect their schooling in any way? Or, did that affect you in school? Or were you a pretty good student growing up in your childhood?
Well, my father didn't let me. I mean, he didn't let my grades slip. If I didn't get good grades, that was always the first thing. He was very good about keeping me in school, keeping me focused on that. As far as like getting hit and stuff, when you're a little kid, the punches don't really hurt at all. So it's much more of a game of stick and move, that kind of thing. But yeah, as far as the grades and stuff, they didn't affect me as much as it affects others because my dad was really good about it.
How about your mother? What did she think of you, being so young and getting into a sport like boxing?
My mom loved it. She was very supportive from the beginning. She spent all my fights. She's not one of those kind of moms that likes to look away when I get hit. She encouraged me to be tough and challenge my opponent and what have not.
And you had a tremendous, amateur record, experience there. What was your amateur record by the time you finished that?
Somewhere between 200-300 amateur fights. I honestly lost count, and I probably lost somewhere between 20 and 30, if that. Once you start getting in the tournament, you fight more often, so you have a lot more chances to win and lose. If you go like some of the nationals or the regionals, you're fighting 2-3 times, 5 times in that week. So a lot of fights, a lot of fights. It became natural.
What type of big time tournaments did you win?
The first time I was on the plane was when I was 15 for like a junior Olympic tournament in North Carolina, and I went over there and won that. And then from then I was just traveling all over the country for tournaments. I won everything I won the U.S. championships. I won the national Golden Gloves. Leading into the Olympics, of course, Olympic trials and the box off. I don't know. It's hard to name because they kind of bunch up in your memory. But I won pretty much everything that was out there.
And what do you think attracted you to the sport? What made you keep coming back every day to the gym? And, what motivated you to keep, going at the sport, at a hard sport like boxing?
Well, it's tough. Once you know you're good at it, and once, like I said, my father said, you're going to the Olympics when I was young. And I said, okay, like I didn't understand what he was talking about. I just said, okay. And I kind of went with the flow, There's many, many times when I wanted to quit, when I wanted to be a normal kid. 10, 12, 13, 15 years old, I didn't get to go to my prom. I didn't get to go to any dances. The night of the prom, I fought against, it was USA versus Ireland. So
and that's the hardest thing for a kid, too, as a teenager, like you're saying, a young man, to sacrificing all these things and giving them all up.
Yeah, it's difficult. It is difficult, but like I said, once you know that there's an end, like a rainbow at the end there, it kind of become like your own business, and you want to make sure you succeed there if you can. So it's kind of like it keeps you going. That it's possible to make big money and get big fame, and then make something of yourself. My dad that was kind of got my dad was. He was always telling us, you got to make something of yourself. You got to be better than the rest, and the whole nine. So it's kind of ingrained in our mentality in our family.
And at 17, you nearly made it onto the '88 Olympic team, and you were eliminated, I believe. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but by one of my favorite boxers of all time, Michael Carbajal. How did that loss affect you and your life and your career later down the line?
I fought Michael Carbajal in the 1988 Olympic trials, and he beat me. He was going into the whole tournament in the Olympic trials. He was already favored to win the gold medal in the whole Olympics, So going into that, it was a little intimidating. But the thing is, I fought him a year and a half before in the U.S. championships. And when I fought him, I was 16, and I was a little kid, man. I didn't have a chance, He beat me a unanimous decision, clearly, whatever. But the second time we fought, which is funny, I had hit puberty, and I came back as a much bigger 106-pounder. It was 106 pounds we're talking about. And I gave him a much better fight, and I thought if I pushed it, I could have took it out. I could have pulled it. But there's no way that the judges or the people were going to give me that, the chance to beat Mike Carbajal in the Olympic trial. So I didn't take it the wrong way. I just thought, this is a good learning experience, and the next Olympics will be a lot easier. The next Olympic trials, I mean.
And what did you think of him? The '88 Olympics happened, and he went on to win a silver medal there. What did you think of his career, and what happened to him down the line?
I believe he won silver. I think they robbed him of the winning the gold, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I've heard by everybody. Yes.
Yeah, and that was we were disappointed because we were rooting for him. Once when you're young, when you're boxing. When I grew up in the boxing gym in East LA and in LA, there's world champions everywhere, So I'm sparring Julio Cesar Chavez when I was a kid. I'm sparring a lot of really big time pros from back in that era, in the early '80s, in the mid '80s, late '80s, '90s. So seeing guys make it and not make it wasn't a big deal for us. You know what I'm saying?
And yeah, I do. Just what you were saying, the last thing you just said there, your last statement, what came to mind was I remember talking to Chris Bird earlier this year, and he was saying the same thing with him. He almost made it onto the '88 Olympics, but he didn't, and he went on to the '92 Olympics down with you. And he said that was the best thing that could have happened to him because his body was still maturing, and by the time of the '92 Olympics, he was full on ready to go. And if he would have gone on in '88, he probably would have done as well because his body was still maturing, and the experience he just didn't have enough of that.
That's exactly. I mean, you have to be ready for life at your time. You can't force things. You got to let nature take its course. So whenever something like that happens and your body is not physically as capable as the next guy, then you just got to take it and take it as a learning experience, right? And,
right, and mentally as well.
Mentally, of course. I mean, you do what you can understand as much as possible. When I fought Michael the first time, like I was a little kid, and I knew that even if I beat him in the big trials, I might not have been ready to go on the international stage like as much as he would. So he was a better candidate to go to the '88 Olympic trials than I was.
It was totally obvious, and I brought that little story up about what Chris said because it was pretty obvious at that time. You were fighting at Michael Carbajal's weight, which was like 106 or 108 at the time, yeah. And by the time you went on to the next Olympics at 92, you were a welterweight. So I mean, it shows that your body was still maturing at that time.
Well, the thing is this, okay? I told you I grew up with Oscar De La Hoya and Shane Mosley, and we were all real close. So I was fighting at 112, 119 when Oscar De La Hoya started making a big name for himself at 125 pounds. At that time, Shane Mosley was 132 pounds. So going into the Olympics, I knew I was still growing. I hit puberty, and I was really late. I was a late bloomer. Hit puberty like in late high school, and I was going into a position where I was going to have to challenge those guys in order to be on that team. And my dad, like I said, when I was 10 years old, he said, "You're going to the Olympics." So I was like, whoa. He says, we're all together. We made a choice to try to fight at 147 pounds. And I remember going to a tournament in Finland, and it was the first time I ever went to, and I went to fight at 147 pounds, but I'd never weighed more than 141, 142. This is eating the whole nine, right? And I did well. I used my skill. We grew up with training with a lot of world champions and sparring with them. So I did well against the international guy. I fought Mongolia and I fought Russia, and I did well. And I thought, okay, you know what, I think I could do this. So going into the U.S. Championships next year, I used my brains, I used the skill, and I did well.
Now, during the time of, let's say, the '88 Olympics, where you're still a teenager, you were known as Jose Salazar, right?
Well, yeah, I have
and you were legally adopted by your stepfather.
By my father, correct. I was 15 when that happened with the name change.
Did you get to know your real father, or was that something that, was he somebody that you never met?
Yeah, good questions. No, I never met my real father. So the only father I ever knew was my current father.
How were you with your family? Were you guys pretty tight at home?
Like I said, it was difficult because my father was very competitive, and he made a choice for us kids to do what we were going to do. My brothers and sisters, they're all university graduates. My brother and sister went to USC. My little sister NYU because he said he has to go to college. I was the only one that didn't get a chance to go because I was too busy boxing. So having someone with a strong will on your side to push you, even when you don't want to do it, is a pretty good thing, and it gets things done. So when he said this is going to happen, that's pretty much what we direction that we're going in.
Now, when you were trying to qualify onto the '92 Olympic team, I'm sure you had some of the best, fighters there boxing at that time. Was this something that you knew you were going to make? Were you pretty confident in competing in those box-offs going towards the '92 Olympics?
I was. The year before that, I won the U.S. Championship, and I pretty much blew everyone away because I felt really comfortable that way all of a sudden. I was boxing really well then, too. The following year, the Olympic year, I won the National Golden Gloves. They qualified me for the U.S. Olympic trials. And there were some new guys coming up, and there was a couple of softballs that were difficult. And that was my biggest concern going into that I was going to have to fight. The two top guys beside me were southpaws. So to answer your question, yes, I was very comfortable. I was comfortable, but I was concerned about the southpaws.
Now, when you qualified, the qualifying fight to make you go on to the Olympics there for the '92 team, you defeated a guy named Jesse Brasino of Michigan, and that was in Phoenix, Arizona, where, of course, Michael Carbajal was from, to go on to the '92 Olympics. What were the things that came to mind right when you were announced the winner? besides the hot sun out there, out in a tent, I believe that you guys fought in. What passed through your mind, man? I mean, to
We fought
qualify
this
to go
really,
onto this team, representing the United States.
we fought at this really beautiful hotel. They built like a tent arena in the back, and it was really, really extravagant show. It was like the first time I've ever been in that kind of quality show or event, and it was pretty spectacular. All the top guys were there. The Olympic box office structured as the guy who wins the Olympic trials fights another guy who was picked by the coaches and the critics and whatnot not to come challenge the champion of the Olympic trials. So the Olympic trial champion has to win one time and he qualifies for the Olympics. But if he loses the first fight, he gets a chance to fight again, and he has to win that to qualify, right? So I already won the tournament, so I had to win one time. When they picked Brasino, I was like, whoa, this is a tough fight, because we had Bird, Chris Bird's brother, I forgot his first name. If Chris Bird's brother, he was the other guy that was tough in that year.
Yeah, his name is Patrick Bird.
Patrick Bird, yeah, correct. I fought Brasino again, and it was a really, really tough fight. When they announced my name, I was still busy getting over being tired and what have not. It didn't hit me that I was going to be an Olympian until like that night. I was like, whoa, it's a pretty big thing. Writers and promoters and managers start talking to you. I'm like, oh, it's a big thing.
What were the first thoughts, man? I mean, did people say when you win these big fights that things like flashbacks from your childhood come to mind and all that stuff. What were your thoughts right after you won this fight?
What were my thoughts? Well, the first thing I thought was like, whoa, I'm going to be rich. I thought I made it. That this is it. All I got to do is just keep winning fights, and this is the first big step to being rich. But I didn't realize it was such a hard road the whole way through. But I was like, people were coming up to me and telling me how extravagant it was. But to me, the work was just about to begin because I was about to go to the Olympics, So they're saying, oh, this is great, you're an Olympian, it's not. But I'm thinking, like, oh, now I got to go fight the best guys in the world from other countries, The work's just starting to begin. But it was fun, though, because we had a good team. The 92 team was, we had, like, apparently, according to the writers, we had a best Olympic team since '84. That won all those medals, and we were going to do all these great things, De La Hoya, Burns Forrest, Eric Griffin. We had a lot of really good guys. Chris Bird. So it was exciting to be part of that.
Yeah, that was pretty much my next question. What was it like traveling to Barcelona, with a team like that, with guys like Montel Griffin and Oscar De La Hoya, Chris Bird, Raul Marquez, Larry Donald, Little E, like you said, Eric Griffin. What was it like traveling to Barcelona for this?
It was actually a little surreal because when we arrived in Barcelona, they built this Olympic village that was unlike any other village they said before. It was the most modern, it was most well protected. And it was right on the ocean too. These beautiful big towers that were the apartments that we were going to stay in. And the Olympic village itself was very modern and hip, and it was brand new. Everything was new, and we had our own private beaches, we had our own nightclubs, we had everything, all the food, and the restaurants were all free, and the movie theater. When I first walked in the Olympic Village, I saw the people from the morning show on NBC, the Today Show, and CNN. And when I saw all the writers and all the other journalists, I said, "Whoa, this is big." And that I think struck me most. Traveling with a team like we had, we felt strong. We were all really well trained, and we were all in shape. So we all thought we were going to go there and pick these guys apart.
You guys probably felt like superstars being out there and having nightclubs and all that stuff. Was it pretty hard not to go out there, try to keep yourselves disciplined to stay away from that type of stuff while you guys were there?
The first week when we got there, we had 2 weeks in Barcelona to get ready before the competition started. But we had our time to go look at the city. I mean, being in the city, being in Barcelona, being that young, and seeing like that kind of extravagant event for the first time, like that was amazing. Barcelona is one of the most beautiful cities in the world as it is. They have all the great architecture and all the modern structures, and the people were really sophisticated and well dressed. And I was like, whoa, this is really amazing. It's completely different than life at home. So just being able to, after training, go out and walk around the city in the beginning was enough, and they built the Olympic Stadium up on the hill, and that year also was the year of the Dream Team. So we rubbed elbows with the Dream Team on like every day on a regular basis. So the whole idea of it being surreal was brought together by all those factors, plus being on the Mediterranean Sea every day. When you wake up, you look out your window. So it was pretty extravagant.
Of all these great fighters that we spoke of that were there on your team, which guys were you closest to, and what guys did you become really good friends with?
Well, my roommate was Sergio Reyes. We had 4 Latino fighters for the first time in like ever. It was Raul Marquez, De La Hoya, me, and Sergio Reyes. So we were pretty tight for the 4 of us. My roommate was Sergio Reyes, so me and Sergio were really close. And we watched his back, and we got each other up to run. When we ran together in the morning, that was like pretty special. We got up at dawn when it was still dark, and we just go out there and killed ourselves.
And your first bout there, I mean, it was against a guy from there, a Spaniard, Victor Baute, who you outclassed pretty much to get your first win there in the Olympics. Was it hard to fight a guy in his own country, there in the Olympics? Was that pretty hard for you?
Well, we didn't find out the draw until like I think the day before the show the thing started, and I didn't get a chance to walk into the opening ceremonies because my fight was going to be the next morning, like at 10 a.m. or something. And I fought the Spaniard, so it was a home country. I was relieved I didn't have to fight the Cuban first or something like that. But it was a home country of Spaniard, and traditionally, whenever you fight the home country, it's going to be tough because they're always ready. Whatever, second, maybe it's a supernatural thing, but whenever you fight the home country, it's going to be tough. So I didn't get a chance to walk in with the team, with the USA into the opening ceremonies because I had to be home and in bed and ready for my fight there next morning on the first Olympic competition at 10 a.m. So when I fought the Spaniard, who was really, really tough, I was really nervous, but I was lucky enough to fight. I felt good that morning. I felt well, and I ended up stopping him.
Your next bout in the Olympics, is that the one that you were eliminated in?
I was eliminated the second fight against one of the Russian countries. I fought a left-handed guy who was so awkward that it was like the first time I fought anyone this awkward. I'm sweating this guy could have been off the street. He could have been on his first day of boxing because that's how awkward he was. I couldn't figure him out. The second part of the fight.
Yeah, I think I remember I heard about that it was like a real dirty and like awkward, sloppy type of fight.
Really dirty, sloppy, southpaw who wouldn't let me get near him, and whenever I did, he went crazy. Almost like he went into convulsions. And I didn't get the hang of it until the second part of the fight. But that year was the first year of the new scoring system with the points. And I had a really unfriendly referee from, I think it was the Philippines, who was just completely against our side, Americans and what have not. And all those factors put together ended up in a real sloppy fight in the beginning. But I did come back really well in the second half of the second round. In the third round, I was just basically chasing him on the ring, and he wouldn't stand still, And I think if it would have been the 5-man scoring system of the past that I was used to, I won the fight easily. But because of the new scoring system and his style and the whole thing, he was scoring points when I was trying to get near him. There was a time when he was running around the ring. I remember.
Didn't he hit you like with a low blow or something like that?
Low blows, low back of the head, everything you could think of. He was. Like I said, every time I got near him, he just went crazy and almost like he was going in convulsions, and I couldn't really get anything off. There was a time in the third round and this is Olympics, right? There was a time in the third round when I stopped and I looked at him and I said, all right, stop moving. And he looked at me and he shook his head like, no. And he kept going, and I was like, oh man, hey, this guy ain't gonna stop. So it was a very difficult, awkward fight.
Now, like after a loss like that, you're out of the Olympics, and you're like, man, this is my dream. And how many times that we, heard those stories of somebody that got robbed in the Olympics? What did that do for you? I mean, did you go through a depression stage? What were you like after this experience, where you were taken out of the Olympics for reasons like this?
It's difficult to be depressed with all the achievements and all and that happened that year. Being part of that. It's difficult to be depressed when you're in the most beautiful place in the world for that time, every day, and around people achieving things, I just told myself, like, I got another week and a half to spend in Barcelona. I'm going to support the rest of the guys. Hopefully we can get some good wins, and I'm going to enjoy being here. I trained my whole life from the age of 8 till I was 21 when I went to the Olympics. That's 13 years of training for one event. So when it was over, I was a little relieved, and I was in a beautiful place in the time in the world, which was the Olympics. The whole world came to one city to hang out. So I wasn't really freaking out about being depressed or anything. I was just enjoying that, and I knew that when I came home, I was going to have a good pro career.
The amateurs nowadays is a lot different now. What do you think of amateur careers? Do you think that's important to stay, get as much amateur experience as you can? Or do you think it depends on the person's style if they should become pro or not? Or, what do you think of that whole amateur experience, before they become pro? Do you think it is important to stay amateur and get that experience and rack that up?
I think that if you don't go to the amateur programs, you're not going to know what it's like to be in competition, and you're not giving yourself a proper chance to know what you're going to be dealing with. Fighting an amateur fight, I tell all the young guys, fight as many fights as you can. Doesn't matter if you win or lose. Just learn how to be a part of the program and learn how to give yourself a better chance to learn how to win later on in life when it becomes really serious. You know, if you don't have what it takes in amateur, sometimes you blossom as a pro because you went through the program as an amateur. You know what competition is like, and you know what to expect. You know how to get nervous. You know how to overcome the crowd. You know how to overcome all the styles that they put in front of you. You know, it's just like life. It's like another part of life. Life throws things at you, and being in competition when you're young, it teaches you how to overcome these things. You know, I was telling one of my friends recently that I learned how to deal with fear as a young person. You know, how many people could say that in life? How many people can say they can go into a situation where you're gonna have to go into fear? You know, tiny percentage of the people in society today can say that. You know, being in boxing and being in competition teaches that. So I think being an amateur is completely necessary and just really important.
And to be thrown into fear at 7 or 8 years old and doing that time after time, you know, for all those years.
Out of it. Yeah. I mean, and sometimes, like I say, sometimes you don't want to feel like competing. Sometimes you find a guy who everyone's afraid of. Sometimes you go in there and fight someone that you know you're not gonna beat, but you got to do it anyways.
Well, that's some great advice, and that's some great things for any amateur kids that might be listening or kids that are thinking about going into boxing there.